Good evening and welcome to the Southbridge School Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 26, 2013. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone this evening from the public who'd like to speak? Just state your name and your address, please.
Rose Alicia Lamro, 689 Charlton Street.
That was me.
Okay, no, you're good.
I just wanted to inform you quick. I just wanted to give you a wrap-up of the tournament that was held a couple weeks ago for the money for the golf carts for the new school. I'm proud to say it was a success. The goal was to raise $1,500, and we were able to raise $1,380. Dr. and Mrs. John Tumlo had offered a generous donation of up to $500 for the cart if needed, so their donation will not have to be that full amount. A quick thank you to all the players and to all the people that donated towards the raffle. Fidel's Coffee Shop for the food donation, Southbridge Evening News, Everything Southbridge on Facebook, and Big Bunny for help promoting the event. My mom and dad, Kat and Elsie Alicia, my aunts and uncles, helping out with the food. I'd also like to thank the helpers of the day, Jill Congdon, Yolanda Alvarado, and Andrea St. Germain, the Mickle family for getting the sound system from the Relay for Life, Christina Rios for selling a very large amount of raffle tickets, Jay Boucher for designing the carts, and my husband, Justin Lamro, for all the hard work. This Friday, I will be having a meeting with Superintendent Buzz to hand over all the paperwork and the money so the school can then turn around and get the 2 golf carts to the school. K&C Landscaping has offered to pick up the carts, so the carts will be ready for the school April 1st. So again, I just want to say thank you to the public and to Southbridge for making this a success.
Thank you.
That's Alicia.
Good evening.
Jill Congdon, 298 High Street, speaking on behalf of the Southbridge Elementary PTA. I just wanted to thank everyone who came out to the Worcester Sharks at the DCU Center to watch the 4th and 5th grade chorus from Charlton Street School and West Street School, and led by Mr. Heath and Mr. Rubenacker, the music teachers at both those schools. We had over 240 people attend that game, and the children did a wonderful job singing the national anthem and the God Bless America. They had a blast. Everybody had a really good time. My sister, Mrs. Briggs, who teaches 4th grade, said one of the students wrote about the experience at the Worcester Sharks game in a story. So at some point, I'd like to probably share that story with everybody when I receive it. But the kids just had a great time. It's going to be put on the PTA Facebook when we receive the link of the children singing. And I'm hopefully going to try to put it on the television too, once I receive that link with multiple pictures. But everybody just had a really good time. It was a really nice event. Mrs. Donovan was there, and it was really fun. And the kids, they just sang amazing. Mr. Lab also took his own video, which we'll probably be posting to the website as well. It was a really fun time. But thank you for everyone who came to the event, bought and purchased tickets, and came out to support the 4th and 5th grade choruses at both those schools, and to both those music teachers as well, and the teachers who attended that event. It was really a fun time. Some upcoming events: we're still selling the butter braid breads and the cookies. They're $12 for each item. Order forms to be turned in Wednesday, March 6th for all the children. And if anyone would like to purchase that, they can call the PTA at 508-344-8431 or find an elementary school student who's selling that. Order forms are due, like I said, on March 6th, and all orders must be picked up Wednesday, March 20th between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m. at the old Southbridge High School on Cole Ave in the cafeteria. These are frozen items, and they must be picked up that evening. Also, on Wednesday, March 6th, which is next Wednesday, we have a lot of events going on in the PTA. We have a PTA meeting next Wednesday at 7 o'clock on Cole Ave in the PTA meeting room upstairs in room 200. And we also have our 21st annual Reach Out and Read event. which multiple members of the community will be reading to our students at Eastford Road, West Street, and Charlton Street School next Wednesday morning. And for the preschools, we have some readers that will be reading in the afternoon. I just wanted to thank everybody who has volunteered their time to come out and read at this event. It's really wonderful for the kids to see members of the community from all different aspects come and read to their class and share the stories and the books. It's really a good event. So I just wanted to thank everyone in advance for their participation. We have the Mother-Son event coming up in March. It's March 28th. Starting at 5:30 will be pictures. 5 to 5:30 will be pictures. There's going to be a cheese booth where sons with a mother, aunt, or significant female in their lives can come and take pictures in this booth, dress up, wear some funny hats, clothes, different props, and take pictures. We also have Transformers coming to do a presentation for the sons. We're going to be offering snack packs for $3. The boys can make superhero masks. And we have a magician, Frank D'Amelio, who will be performing a magic show from 7 to 8 p.m. So it's really going to be a wonderful event. Mallory Jimenez and Sandra Aponte have been helping me on this event, along with my PTA board, and we're really excited to be hosting this event. So it should be a really fun time. If anyone would like to volunteer, they can also call the PTA at 508-344-8431 or email us at southbridgepta@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public this evening? Last call for the public. All right, we'll move on to calling the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. D'Amico?
Present.
Mrs. Donovan?
Present.
Mr. Lazo?
Excused.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Present.
Dr. O'Leary? Present. Mrs. Principe?
Present.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Present.
6 present, 1 excused.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the approval of the minutes, the regular school committee minutes from January 22nd, 2013. Do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion from Mrs. Principe, seconded by Dr. D'Amico. Any changes, errors, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? One abstention. Thank you. Next, the regular school committee meeting from February 12th, 2013. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Principe, again seconded by Dr. D'Amico. Any corrections, errors, or changes? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Agenda item 6, chairwoman's, I'm not a man, I guess. Anyways, chairwoman's announcements, I don't have any. Moving on to reports, representative of the Student Advisory Committee, Ms. Faith Macharia.
Hello, everyone. Tonight is the girls' varsity basketball game. They're actually in districts. I don't know if you'll have enough time to get there and support them, but hopefully they'll win tonight. March 12th will be the Music in Around concert for the band and chorus at the high school. And March 15th will be a talent show hosted by Taylor Locanto and Nicolas Morales, and it will be fun. I think it's open to even middle school kids. And also another thing is the SATs. I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and March is right around the corner. Actually, this Friday will be March, and May starts the SATs, so it'll be really important if we could actually get that going and train the students. Last year, personally speaking, we had a class. Mr. Bishop actually implemented a class for math and English. And it was really good for the students because people didn't understand SATs. They don't know what is the content of it or anything about it. So it's really important to get that going for the juniors this year. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you. Moving on to school committee reports, curriculum subcommittee, Mrs. Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not have a report, and I'm still working on coordinating a subcommittee meeting, perhaps for some time in March, but I do not have a date as of yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Policy subcommittee, Mrs. Principe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a meeting on February 13th at 9 a.m. Subcommittee members present, myself, Kara Donovan, Lauren McLaughlin, Terry Wiggin, Director of Finance and Operation, and community member Leanne Pate. We worked on several policies. One was field trips and student travel. We did merge those policies, and I think we'll talk more about that when it comes time to vote. We also worked on transportation, walkers and riders, and we changed that to and from school, and we'll talk about that later on. And we began working on the policy for school councils, and that will continue with tomorrow's meeting, which is the 27th. It's at 9 a.m. at 25 Cole Ave in room M100. Like I said, we'll continue working on school councils, and we're going to take a look at facility use. And I just want to thank Mrs. McLaughlin for taking the minutes at all these meetings. It's really appreciated. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to Budget, Facilities, and Transportation Subcommittee. Dr. D'Amico?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We're both having the same problem.
That's okay.
No meeting was held. However, I will be scheduling a subcommittee meeting for the second week of March. While we await the audit report for the financial, I think we need to really complete the review of the proposed budget for the next fiscal year. Otherwise, the time is going to run out. So the school committee members of the subcommittee, I would appreciate you being available the second week in March. Thank you.
Thank you. Collective Bargaining Subcommittee, Mrs. Principe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We were in negotiations with the Southbridge Education Association, and at our last meeting, we agreed upon suspending negotiations until the audit is completed and we receive a result of that audit. Thank you.
Thank you. And Communication, Family, and Community Engagement Subcommittee, Mrs. McLaughlin?
Thank you. Last night, we held our final, for this round, parent forum at Southbridge Middle High School. Mrs. Donovan and I and other members of the subcommittee will be getting together to discuss how best to present that to the full school committee and to the public, our findings therein. So we're going to be working on that. I have no meeting scheduled at this time.
Thank you. Moving on, presentations this evening, we have a presentation on Educator Evaluation Tool and Process Overview by Ms. Amy Allen, the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment.
I think I might need a little technical assistance here.
Here it comes.
As we wait, I just want to say that I'm coming here tonight, not with bad news, like previous, but this is good news because finally we've been able to work with the SEA, and we have negotiated Article 17 to a point where we can all agree, and they have all signed off on it. So I have it here for you all to sign if you get to that point this evening. Not good with this remote. So I don't know, I sent you a packet with a PowerPoint in it and also that Article 17. I don't know how many of you actually read through it, but I'd just like to give you an overview, and then if you have any questions, this has been something we've been working on for months, and that the teachers and administrators have been being trained on.
Excuse me, Amy? Would you mind just speaking up a little bit more? I think the audience can't hear you very well.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, Mike, there's a big hum out here. Okay, I think we're good now.
Okay.
Let's try it.
So the key features of the new evaluation system, we have 4 performance standards, 4 performance ratings, a performance rubrics, and we have that for teachers and administrators, as well as support staff, separate rubrics for each. Multiple sources of evidence are involved in the evaluation. All teachers are on a plan of some sort, and all teachers follow a 5-step evaluation cycle, and I'll explain each of these briefly. These are the 4 performance standards for teachers. Curriculum planning and assessment, and teaching all students. Those two standards are the primary standards that we're going to be focusing on for this first year of evaluation. Family and community engagement and professional culture, they will also be evaluated on, but that's going to come into play later on in the evaluation. DESE is still moving this forward, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and it's still kind of a work in progress. For principals, instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community partnerships, and professional culture. There are 4 performance ratings for both administrators and teachers: exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory. And the teachers have to be at least proficient on those first 2, the curriculum instruction and assessment and teaching all students, to get that overall proficient rating to stay on the plan that they're on. And I'll explain that as we go. This is just I presented this slide to the teachers at the beginning of the school year because I know this is how we've all been feeling with everything that we've been going through with the state. And we've got the state in the back leaning over the principal's shoulder, leaning over the teacher's shoulder, leaning over the student's shoulder, and everybody's shaking in their boots. And that's kind of the way this has been. This whole process with the evaluation tool has been. Everybody's been a little skittish because of all the pressure we've been under. But if everybody works together on this like we have been and we keep moving forward this way, I think that ultimately this is going to lead to better teaching and improved learning in the classroom. So there are 4 kinds of educator plans, and like the previous slide said, every educator is on a plan. A developing educator plan is for any teacher that's non-PTS, which at this point means that they haven't been teaching yet for 3 years or they're new to the district. People that may have been teaching for 4 or 5 years but just came into the Southbridge School District will also be on a developing educator plan because every district has different goals and does things differently. Self-directed growth plan is what I would say 98% of the teachers in our district will be on for this year. And that was part of our negotiations to start everybody on a self-directed growth plan. So in other words, all our teachers pretty much start with a clean slate on a 2-year self-directed growth, but as they get evaluated, that can change at any time. A directed growth plan, we don't have any of our teachers on that at this point. That's teachers who have professional teaching status but get needs improvement on their ratings. And then the improvement plan is for teachers with PTS who get unsatisfactory on their ratings. And as you can see, these plans have different lengths because after each length of time that's developed by the evaluator, they're reevaluated and monitored throughout to see if they're making any kind of improvement. So they can move up or down on this scale depending on their performance and evaluation. It's a 5-step cycle. The teachers have already done their self-assessments and their goal setting and plan development. We've been working on this since the beginning of the school year. I've provided 2 days of professional development for them on this, and most of them already have this complete. On March 8th on our PD day, all of the evaluators are going to meet with all of the educators in the district, and we are going to spend that entire half day reviewing all those SMART goals and plans and making sure everybody is ready to go, because we do not want any more backward steps with this process. So we're at the point of the implementation of those educator plans as of March 8th. So all of the teachers initially had to assess their professional practice and assess the learning in their classroom. And they used many different measures for that. They may, depending on what their goals were, they used data such as DRP scores, DIBEL scores, MCAS scores, data on the students that they had in their classrooms, and they looked for patterns to see where they could improve student learning. They also had to self-assess their own practice and see where their strengths and weaknesses were, and they had to make a goal towards improving their practice in the classroom, how they can be more effective teachers. So they have to do one goal for student learning and one goal for their own professional practice. All of these goals are reviewed. Everybody has an assigned evaluator in the district, and the evaluator reviews their goals and approves their goals. Sometimes if we feel like their goals are too lofty, we might tell them, you want to make a goal that you can reach by the end of the year, or maybe we feel like they need to reach a little further. And so we talk about that as well. But it's a discussion that's had between the educator and evaluator. It's a very collaborative process as opposed to the previous process. Implementation and evidence collection is where we'll be beginning. We purchase binders for every teacher in the district so that they can collect evidence to show that they are making progress on the goals that they have set for themselves, and also to collect data about their students, if their students are making progress in the classroom. And formative assessment and evaluation, at the end of each cycle, mid-cycle for people that are non-PTS, they meet with their evaluator and they get feedback and they're assessed and they're given a level where they can move from towards the end of the year. Summative evaluation is what happens at the end of a cycle. So for our non-PTS teachers, they'll have a summative evaluation at the end of this year where they will be given a rating. For the PTS teachers that are on a self-directed growth plan, they will have that at the end of next year because they're all on a 2-year plan. And I kind of repeated myself there. But the reason that we did this was because we have so many teachers in the district that don't have PTS. We have so many new teachers, new to the district or new to teaching. And in order to, for the first year, to make the load of the evaluators a little less daunting, we put those people with PTS that have a track record of good evaluations on this 2-year plan. And then the people that don't have PTS are on a different plan because the number of visits that we have to complete differs depending on which plan they're on. So the educator's responsibilities primarily for this new tool, identifying, collecting, and submitting the evidence for their goals. They have to present that to their evaluators. Documenting their action steps that they've completed as part of their plan. How far have they gotten? And then submitting that evidence related to those first 2 standards, the curriculum and the teaching all students. The evaluators have to make sure that whatever those teachers need in order to be successful, they are provided. If they need professional development, it's our responsibility to provide that for them. If they need resources, it's our responsibility to provide it. If they need time, we have to find a way to do that for them. So we are responsible to assist them in that way. And to help them identify what evidence is going to show us that they've been able to accomplish those goals. And of course, observing their practice as often as possible and providing written feedback to them. When we do an observation, within 3 to 5 days, we have to provide them with written feedback as to their performance and how they can improve or what we can do to help them, and monitor their progress, obviously, throughout the cycle. So this is just kind of the total picture of this new tool, the products of their practice, the evidence, the measures of student growth and learning, scores for standardized tests and common assessments will be used toward evaluation. How students are performing in classrooms is going to begin to be part of the evaluation, but not this year. DESI's still working on those guidelines for us and how we're going to do that, but it will be part of the evaluation, as will parent feedback, student feedback, and staff feedback. So Standard 1, Standard 2, 3, and 4 are part of the rubric. Standard 1 and 2 are what we're really focusing on for this year. And then how far they've gotten with their goals. Those are the 2 things that create the performance rating. And teachers that are outstanding, proficient, or exemplary, the goal is that these teachers get incentives. So people are actually working toward being exemplary teachers and not just trying to meet that mark and ride along. It's something for people to reach for. And this is still a work in progress. We're still working with DESI. There's still training that will be going on next year. Training still for our administrators and calibrating how we're looking at learning and teaching and learning to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But so far, so good. And hopefully March 8th we'll be able to get this process finalized and on the move.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate you coming. Some of my questions are very basic. I think I need just further clarification on the PTS, or the professional teaching status. I'm just not sure of the definition. You mentioned it's somebody that either hasn't been in the district or hasn't taught here for more than 3 years, but is there more to it than that?
Well, prior to this tool, PTS has always been, once you hit your 3-year mark in the district and you've been rehired, you earn PTS, professional teaching
Is that the
status.
same as tenure, or is that something different?
Well, for our intents and purposes, yes. But with this new tool, it's possible for a teacher to reach PTS prior to that 3-year mark if they're showing to be proficient. I mean, you might get a first-year teacher that's absolutely fabulous. And so there really isn't, it is professional teaching status, and it's not tenure, because you can get that professional teaching status delineation after 1 year if you've actually reached that proficient or exemplary mark.
And on the same token, you can have PTS status and get an unsatisfactory evaluation, which
That's right.
needs to be
And be
addressed.
moved down to a different kind of plan, where you're directed to do a certain thing and you have until a certain date to do such. And this is how things
Okay.
go downhill.
Another question I had, is this evaluation tool something that's common statewide now, that all districts are required to use this, or is this something that has been around and now we're getting on board with this particular type of tool?
Some districts implemented it last year. We're required, because we're level 4 and we're a race to the top district, that we had to have it implemented this year, at some point this year. And there were choices. You could adopt or adapt this tool, but yes, this is used statewide.
Okay. You mentioned about working towards an area where parents and students can also take part in this evaluation. How and when will that type of evaluation take place?
Well, per what DESE has advised so far, that won't happen until next year, and we don't have guidelines yet. Like I said, this is a work in process even with them, and if I think it might actually say in that Article 17 that a lot of these things are pending DESE guidelines that will be provided probably in June of this year for next year.
Okay. I got a little confused when you were talking about certain plans that were on a 2-year cycle. That does not mean that they will not get evaluated
No.
only once in a 2-year period. Is that right?
Well, if they're on a 2-year self-directed growth plan, which is the majority of the district at this
Yeah.
time, what's required is at least one unannounced visit to a teacher's classroom.
Okay.
Obviously, in order to see how a person is progressing,
Do more.
we've already probably done many more than that already, just up until this point. But that is what is required. For a non-PTS teacher, you have to, in their first year, you have to do one announced visit, which is similar to the way we used to do it last year with the pre-conference, the whole classroom visit, the post-conference with the teacher, and then 4 unannounced visits. That's the requirement. So there's different requirements for the different levels, and self-directed 2-year plan is the highest, and only 1 unannounced visit is required for the cycle, but clearly, there will be many, many more. But the good thing about this tool is that we don't have to schedule everything now. Now, administrators, we can go in unannounced and do an observation. They have to be a minimum of 10 minutes long, but it allows us that freedom to go in when we're able, if there's 2-hour free time frame, go in and do, 4 or 5 evaluations of teachers in the area and kind of get snapshots. And obviously you want to do more, because if you go to the beginning of a class, you might not see the meat of it. So you might want to go back to that teacher's room a couple weeks later and to a middle of a class and see what that might look like. So it gives us a little more flexibility as administrators, but it also holds everybody accountable, because this, it's transparent, and teaching is open, and the evaluation is open. So
That's great. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's going to benefit everybody that's involved. My last question was just, the tool itself, like I read through this Article 17, and I had gone through your PowerPoint, but the actual line items, for lack of a better term, of what exactly you're looking for, or what you're actually evaluating, is that a separate document that the evaluators will look at or use when they're actually sitting in a classroom to determine how well or not a teacher is performing?
Yes, we actually have a tool, an online tool that we use called TeachPoint. And all of these forms that the educators and the evaluators have to complete are all on TeachPoint. So under a teacher's name is their self-assessment form, their goals forms, their evidence forms, and also that's where we go in and we do their formative assessments. That's where we fill in the observation forms and provide them the feedback. It's all done on an online suite, TeachPoint.
Okay.
And I can certainly give you copies of that if you'd like to see
Yeah,
what
I
it
was
looks
just
like.
curious of
Yeah.
what it looks like,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, I'm all set. Thank you, Ms.
Mrs.
Allen.
Principe?
Yes, just to follow up on something Mrs. Donovan had mentioned, what is the state's involvement at this point? I know with the evaluation, even superintendent and administrators and teachers, they propose something, and like you said, we can adopt it or adapt it or totally rewrite it. Being a level 4, what role do they play now? Do they review this and say,
Review the tool?
Yes,
We had to submit it to the state, yes.
you did.
Yeah, we have to submit the finalized tool to the state. They've been waiting.
Oh, I know. And they'll get back to us at some point saying yay or nay, or,
I think they were just, I mean, they're going to accept what we have. We've pretty much adopted what they had with very small changes to it, for our district-specific purposes, but
okay, I think it's if you totally rewrite it, that's when
Right.
they really have to go through an
yeah,
approval.
we didn't revise it.
Okay.
We made small changes
Okay,
to it.
thank you.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Dr. Domingo had her hand up first.
Okay, sorry, Dr. D'Amico?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm too going to tag along to something that Mrs. Donovan started. Again, we have a proposal, but to me, it lacks some measurable, concrete things that we're going to do to, number one, set the goals, and number two, evaluate the goals. And I would really appreciate it the same way if, when this is developed, we receive some samples. One goal to improve student learning, I can't even start to imagine what that would be and how you're going to measure it. You know what I mean? So yeah, the goal can be very lofty. We are going to, make students read more. Well, how are we going to do that? Or what are the important goals? Are those part as well of this online resource that is being used for this?
Well,
Or
the
no?
goals are created individually by the teachers or teams. So some goals are actually team goals. They could be a department, it could be a grade level team that's creating a goal. And they're very specific. That's part of the requirement. They have to be very specific goals, such as, students will learn 70 sight words by a specific date, say for an elementary school student. So they're very specific, and then the teachers have to create action steps of how they're going to get the kids to that goal. I can show you samples of what we've got, but it's actually very, very specific as to what they're doing and what the evidence is that they need to provide.
No, that would be excellent, because again, this is one of those presentations where you get an overview, you get a feel where this is going, how it should be done, but it tells you absolutely nothing of the content. What is that going to be? How are we going to measure it? And how are we going to make it better? So any samples that you could provide in the future when they become available, I would very much appreciate that.
We actually, there was a binder that I gave to each of the administrators that has tons of reference material and information, and certainly we can provide you each with a copy of that binder if you'd like to see what we're using. We didn't want it to be too cumbersome for you this evening, so.
I think the questions, well, first off, this is a state project, and when the Race to the Top dollars were announced a few years ago, in order to be eligible for the millions that were being provided by the federal government, the states would have to provide a teacher evaluation tool that was substantially more rigorous, number one, and then it had to have measurable objectives and clear measurable objectives, and the whole goal was to improve classroom teaching using data and other artifacts. Massachusetts went in early. This is basically the state plan. And one of the things that's still debating is the amount of student performance scores toward the teacher's evaluation. So for the first time, they were looking at how much the student has learned or how little has learned and affects the teacher's evaluation. Before, as you say, you could make lofty goals. Students will read many books.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what you evaluate. Now it's specific as to what books and what outcomes will come. And the second part of it, before most contracts would say we would have 2 or 3 or 4 formal evaluations. You would organize that. You couldn't pop in and count. So this one now allows for multiple observations by multiple people to walk in and out and get, when you get many snapshots, you get a more complete picture. If you get 2 or 3 40-minute observations, you don't get that kind of a view of that. Plus, we have walkthroughs now. Teachers are involved in looking at exemplary teaching. The whole idea was to improve the quality of teaching, not to play gotcha. And I think that this is a works in progress, and Union signed off until the end of the year. We're going to implement this, report back regularly to the school committee, because I think it's very, very important that you know what's happening, and obviously a great deal of interest and concern from all parties, and then we will tweak it as we go along. The state is having multiple workshops to train administrators in all of this. The union has had multiple workshops on the other side, okay? And almost 90%, if I think it of the school districts in the state have basically accepted the state model with a couple tweaks. Some of the larger urban areas are still having their conversations with them. So this is cooperation and collaboration of the Teachers Association. They signed off. Level 4 school districts were the ones that are required to have it implemented this year, and the other districts can wait until the future date, most of next year. So I'll be going to a workshop. There's a couple of them next month. A number of us will be going. It will be conducted by Carla Baer, who was the deputy commissioner who now retired and is running this whole teacher evaluation plan. But it really is consistent with research that says the quality of the individual teacher has the greatest impact and effect on the students. And so in order to do that, we have to have an instrument that can measure and evaluate. Okay, so that's what we're doing. And it's a work in progress, because this is very different than what's been done in the past. People are nervous, as they should be, and we will work it out. People aren't used to having administrators walk in and out, sit down for 10 or 15 minutes, write stuff down, and have that discussed as part of their formal evaluation. Before you had, I'm coming on Thursday, March 8th at this time. Everybody's prepared. Okay, you got a snapshot, but it might not be the most accurate one. So that's what this is all about. And it's clearly a lot of work for everybody. And I think the best thing to do is provide them with a little examples of the rubrics and teacher goals and so on. We'll just redact names and things from that. That'll make sense for everybody in here. And then you can keep asking me questions. I'll be trained next month.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Allen, for the presentation. I appreciate it. In reading the document, it looks like it's going to be quite a workload. And when I went to the MASC conference last fall, they had said that these evaluations are probably going to take up about 40% of an administrator's time, at least. How many, do you know, I should ask, how many evaluations will be done at each school this year? How many, I know that's hard because they're staggered, but I guess, is it a manageable workload? And I'm sure some schools have far fewer than others.
Well, what we've tried to do is separate all of the principals are primary evaluators. They are the primary evaluators for every teacher in their building. But they don't have to be the person that always goes in and evaluates the teaching. They have to sign off on the ed plans for the new teachers, but all of the administrators in the district can submit evaluations for an individual. And some of us are supervising evaluators to teachers. So what I tried to do is make sure that those first-year teachers were under their principal, and anybody that wasn't, we split amongst the rest of the curriculum department so that it kind of balances out. And we all have big loads, but the good news is that we started doing this early in the year, and part of the agreement that we made with the SEA is the ones that we did, that they will keep those if they want them. The teachers are going to have the opportunity to look through the observations they've already had. Some teachers have already had 7 or 8 observations this year, unannounced observations. So if they choose to keep those observations, they could be done with the observations already. But if they don't want those observations to count, because we hadn't signed the tool yet, those that they do not want will be expunged. So we're trying to balance now. After March 8th, we'll know exactly who has how many already done, and then we'll base what we do from there on what's already been done. So that's hard to say right now, but it is balanced. I want to say each of us probably has about 20 people that we have to review ed plans with, and of course we can evaluate anybody. I mean, I can walk into any teacher's room and do a 10-minute evaluation and submit that, and their primary value will see my evaluation and use all of that information when they do the formative assessments and summative assessments for those people. If that makes sense.
A simple, on Friday, when PD Day, on March 8th, and we're devoting that entire time to ensure that, since the agreement's been signed, that we will have general sessions, and then everybody will break down into their individual groups with their evaluators, so all of this information we can send you a list of the primary evaluators and the teachers that are evaluating. That might solve that. And you'll see the amount of work Amy has done organizing all of this, making sure the teachers are divided, and then being as equitable as possible. Because we have, the high school particularly, because we have a changeover, we don't have all of the people the one acting principal can't do it because of certification issues in the process, so we've had to double up on that. So yes, it is a lot of work. It's and Friday we'll make sure everybody's up to speed, because we have to wait for that. As she's saying, other people have had their evaluations earlier in the year, but they could make it count or not. It's up to the individual teacher, and then negotiating with their evaluator. If they think that this is a good evaluation, they want it to be part of their portfolio, they can do that. If not, we're going to start over again. Up to them. And it empowers the teachers too also. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting, because I can imagine that if you're an elementary school teacher and you substantively have one class to deal with the entire year, it has to be different for the teachers at the middle high school who may have a 6th, a 7th, 8th grade class if they're in the middle school, or a 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade class. Are they always going to be observed with one class? How are their goals going to align if they teach honors versus not honors versus advanced placement versus other? So observations for them, I would,
Well, we're not observing their goals.
Okay,
We're observing their teaching.
okay.
The goals are separate. So that's part of their end-of-year evaluation, but they submit evidence as to how they've progressed in achieving those goals. But when we go into a classroom, we don't go in holding their SMART goals and evaluate that. We are strictly in that classroom to evaluate the teaching that we see at that time.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yep.
I did go on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed website today because I was curious about this teacher evaluation tool from their perspective. And they actually have a great frequently asked questions section there. I noticed that today, in fact, they had the Central Massachusetts Getting Started workshop. The next workshop that's coming remotely to our area is March 5th, Pioneer Valley. It's getting started.
In Springfield.
That's what you're talking
Yeah.
about, yeah. And the other thing you can do to anybody, I guess, would be interested in this, is you can sign up for the teacher evaluation newsletter from DESE, so that as information's coming in, it just updates you. And I just went ahead and signed up for it. It just said,
Sometimes it confuses you.
so I just wanted to let everybody know that's a very easy link on the website to do. But I appreciate that. And I would, like a copy of the tools that were being used, but they
Yeah.
also do have samples on the website.
Yeah.
We
I
have
can-
templates.
Yep.
That we use, so there's standardization in that respect.
And I can email you the list of teachers. I have it. I can email that to each of you if you'd like to see.
Any
Thank
other?
you for that.
Dr. O'Leary?
Maybe inappropriate, let me know if I can or not. Amy, can I ask you a question not pertinent to this particular item, but still the
Yeah, let him ask.
Go ahead.
It had to do with tonight.
Okay.
So, Amy, Faith? our student
Can you
liaison-
speak? I'm sorry,
I'm
Dr.
sorry.
O'Leary. They
Yeah,
can't hear you.
Amy, Faith, our student liaison, commented today. She had commented on it before, too. A bit of a prep class for kids, some review or something about SATs that are coming.
SAT prep?
Yeah, yeah. And I know she commented on it before. It seems she's a little more adamant, she's bringing it up again. I don't know if we have anything going forward, but do we? And if we don't, it really would seem appropriate to me.
Well, I can certainly check with the guidance.
Sure.
The high school guidance people were the ones that scheduled that in for the kids
Okay.
last year.
Okay.
I assume that it would be a part of their schedule this year, but I will certainly check.
Can I just give the guidance office a call then tomorrow and avoid you got a full enough plate as it is?
No, I'll do that.
I just want to,
No, I understand. I think it's
It's a
really,
great deal.
let me say is we have to provide prep classes for SAT, PSATs, and a lot of times rankings of school districts and schools are based upon how many kids perform at various levels. So we will make sure that there will be an SAT prep class if I have to do it myself. Okay, because I think what we want to do is support our best and brightest also, and provide opportunities for them, because if they take a private SAT prep class, it's very expensive, and it's not convenient, and as far as the SAT prep class, that could be done quite readily, and and so on, and we can do it after school, we could do it on Saturday, we will make sure it happens.
I appreciate
Okay, so I don't
that.
want
Thank
to,
you.
the guidance will go, all,
Yeah.
we've ruffled enough feathers in the last couple of weeks that we need to make sure that,
No, I don't want to ruffle.
no, I'm saying, but
Thank you, I appreciate it.
when you hear my presentation later, you'll see where we ruffled a few.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Any other questions for Ms. Allen? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you. I know I already had my turn, but Amy, at the very, very beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that the performance rubrics of this evaluation system was not only for teachers, but support staff and administrators.
There are different ones.
Oh, that's
for-
what I'm wondering. What you're talking about tonight and what the SEA has signed off on is strictly the tool for evaluating our teachers. Are there separate rubrics and tools for support staff? And
Yes.
then and
Yes,
who those
because
evaluators will
obviously,
be?
nurses, guidance, OT, PT, speech, they're all evaluated
way
as
down.
well. So there is a separate rubric for support personnel in each building. And there are guidance rubrics that are coming out, and that's another thing that DESE is still working on, is to make more specific rubrics for, say, nurses and guidance. Because right now, there are three that they're complete, and that's the teacher rubric, the support personnel rubric, and the administrative rubric. But we're using the support personnel rubric and kind of picking out the things that apply to the different areas for this year. But DESE expects to have specific rubrics for each of those individual groups as time goes on.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank you.
We have a second presentation this evening, and that is from Mrs. Jan DiGregorio, our Assistant Athletic Director, on the Cape Cod overnight field trip.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm here representing the Southbridge Southbridge Middle High School Athletic Department, and I am here to ask your permission and for another trip to Mashpee High School for a softball, baseball tournament on March 22nd through 24th. The kids will be leaving hopefully at 12 from the school with a bus, which I gave a packet to you, approximately a little over $1,800. The cost of the trip per student is going to be, including spending money, about $85. Once basketball season wraps up, they are planning on getting a meeting together to try to have a fundraiser, and no child will be denied the opportunity to attend this trip due to cost or whatever it may be. They will be leaving from school at approximately 12 p.m. and arriving back into Southbridge about 5 p.m. on Sunday, the 24th, leaving Mashpee High School at about around 3 o'clock. They're going to be playing six 3-inning games or an hour and a half, whichever comes first. And it's just going to be in preparation for this 2013 season. It's a great team-building experience. We've gone for soccer in the past 3 years, which I know we waited till the last minute last year, so that's why I'm here now. And they've gone also with the baseball team for a couple years, and there's never been an issue, there's never been a problem. The spring team will be staying in a hotel. The hotel costs approximately $33 per student per night, and they'll be staying 2 nights versus a campground, which I'm sure they're all thrilled about. And what we're asking for is your support and your approval of this trip. And any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer to the best of my ability.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks, Jan. Thanks for the forenotice, unlike last year. So thank you for the forenotice, unlike last year. Yeah,
I know.
appreciate it.
It was last minute.
Yes, ma'am. So thanks for that. It is the same thing that the kids have done for each of the last 3 years. We've approved it each time. It's worked out flawlessly well, aside
Yes.
from the prep last year.
It'll be approximately 30 students. Right now, I would say 5 chaperones at least, if not more. That's what we're saying right now. Like I said, once basketball season, tonight, good luck girls, I hope they're winning for the district game. Once that wraps up, they're going to have a meeting to try to put together a fundraiser for any student that might come short of any kind of money that, not everybody can afford it. And we're not going to deny anybody. We'll find a way to get them there like we have in the past. And what they usually do is the first night, by the time they get there, if we leave around 12, they'll get there around 3. They'll have a practice session, and then they'll go for pizza or whatever, go to the hotel, kind of, get settled in there. Next morning, they're out by 9 a.m., and they're going to have several games throughout the day. The Booster Club at Mashpee, as well as parents that might attend, bring hot dogs and hamburgers. Big Bunny has been a big proponent for us. They've donated so many things for us, and so they will be fed throughout the afternoon. In the evening, that might be their big dinner, going to Pub 99 or something as a team. And quick curfew, 10 o'clock, they'll be, in their rooms. And up early, packed, ready to go. Mashpee will be supplying vans to and from the school. The bus will be coming back and coming back to town, and then coming back on Sunday to pick them up, to cut back on costs. And so Mashpee supplies us with the vans to transport the children from the school to the hotel, and they'll pack up on Sunday morning. Everything will be in the vans, and they'll be ready to go right from the field. So we're hoping that you will approve of this.
Sure. Dr.
Yes.
D'Amico?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. DeGregor, it appears that we might have the same issue we had last year. It does not appear that this request has been approved by your building administrator?
We did not.
Or the business manager?
That is true. We did not know whether we should have gone through you first to get that approval before we did go to the building administrator. So, I'm not sure as to what the protocol was for the approval of that.
I just hope we don't have anybody here from the building in that capacity. Mr. Leach is not here. I would assume building administrator, because of the day, the school day is run, needs to be aware of the plans. There's going to be a lot of students missing, teacher assignment for various classes between noon and, so I would really urge you to, has Mr. Leach been informed of this request? Does he have it on his radar?
I am assuming he has, but,
He has. I had met him earlier this evening, and I've also the athletic director.
But like I
before
said,
the
I
basketball
was
game.
not sure.
But it needs to be signed and everything for him, and then
Neither was
come before
Brian
that.
as to whether we needed to have his signature first before we came to you, or to have your vote upon it before we went to him. Because, if it was agreed upon with
I
you,
just had dinner with him.
then, if he denied it, then, then that's his decision.
It still needs to go through, okay?
So as long as the superintendent, I'm
And I also
assuming,
spoke with the
endorses
athletic
everything.
director. It's all, and
But again,
I'll sign it right now. It needs to follow the steps.
yeah, we have these for a reason, and then, God forbid, something happens. It would appear that this trip was just thought out by somebody. There's no signatures, there's nothing on it,
Right.
thing liability-wise, and,
But
I'm
like I
glad
said,
that the superintendent is fully aware of, and so this should be
I
okay.
even know the teams they're playing, okay? Because
Well, that is missing from the package.
I know.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mrs. McLaughlin?
Thank you very much. Yep, obviously, in theory, I'm in support of this. I have the same concern about the building principal sign-off. There's been a lot of confusion about field trips on our end, on your end, and that's part of why we're having a reading tonight of a newly kind of created policy that we've adopted, or that we'd like to adopt, I should say, which leads me to another thing. I'm just looking at the actual forms themselves, and on the forms and some of the just information on the actual form, this is more for our internal conversation than yours, but doesn't jive with either our currently existing policy or the proposed policy. So the actual form that was created has some information. And then on these forms too, I mean, it's a step from where we were, I understand that, but there needs to be some revision here. And also, I think anytime we create a form, it should have a date on it, so that we know that we're using the most recent form that's available. So,
I
But
just figured
hopefully-
the date as to the letterhead that was written.
Yeah.
The form just stated the dates of the trip.
Yep.
March 22nd. So.
Correct, you're all set. It's more of an internal
Okay.
administrative thing that I'm just thinking
That
as
we
we're
need to-
going to be talking about this policy, and part of the reason that we worked hard on this to draft a new consolidated field trip overnight travel, international travel policy was to, so that people would know what they had to do.
Okay.
Get that building. So I apologize if that's been unclear to this point. We're going to straighten it out, and then everybody's going to be on the same page about what has to be done, in what order. How
Okay.
about that? Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Wigan, I don't know if you have a copy of what Ms. DiGregorio gave us tonight, or perhaps you could...
I don't have a copy in front of me, but I did meet with the athletic director earlier today, so I'm
Okay,
familiar with
or you
the
can borrow Ms. McLaughlin's there. My only question is, it says that the funding is coming from a revolving account.
The
and I
athletic
could-
revolving
what-
account.
What that was. That's the general...
It's the athletic revolving account.
Athletic revolving, okay. Thank you, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none? Thank you, Mrs. DiGregorio.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Moving on to agenda item number 10, report of the superintendent, Mr. Nevercole.
Yes, you have an update on the new hires for this year, 2 teachers, 2 paraprofessionals, 2 substitutes, 1 permanent, and a math interventionist, and then we had 2 resignations and a retirement so far. Next is the overview of the community task force. As I had discussed with the town council, on February 11th. And what I had asked the town council to consider and discuss with the school committee and so on was creating a task force regarding youth activities in the community. And I know there have been different groups in the past that have done this, but I think a fresh look at the programs that we have, and what I'm particularly concerned with is to identify the populations that are affected by the programs, to ensure that populations are being served effectively, look at any redundancies or overlaps where sometimes you have the groups operating individually and in isolation saying we need to identify this group. And what often happens is that you have 4 or 5 groups providing programs for the same population group, and other groups that are that need services aren't being served, or they're being substantially underserved. And so what I'm looking for isn't so much all of the people saying we do this. I would like to get take stock of what we have in Southbridge first. Find out how many programs we have, find out the populations, their targeted, the age groups, and that. And once you find that out, now you can start looking at, and this is where you need the stakeholders' involvement in this, saying what groups aren't being served. And then with this group, you also identify who are the service providers. You have various church groups, you have various organizations, you have the state and local government providing these things and so on. And what you want to do is create an efficient system. But you have to have the conversation and the taking stock of current programs first. And then once you know what you're providing, okay, and then next conversation is who are we missing and what are we missing? And then once you have identified that, then you can say, okay, what resources do we have? And then how can we develop a plan to address this on a priority basis? You're not going to fix everything overnight, so you develop a plan over that. So that's what I was thinking this group could do, because this is a community effort. It needs to have the police department, all the various groups are involved with youth activities. And I don't want it just to focus on negative aspects. This has to be positive things also, some programs and so on. So you can create a broad program and then distribute it to the community and say, here's what Southbridge provides to these particular groups. I think that's what's missing. Right now it becomes, if you do a lot of research on your own, you can find it. And those kids that do a lot of research on their own probably don't need that much help. So you need to have that coordinated. And then what they should do after they identify all this, get the programs, is to create a permanent steering committee of not too many people that can report back and ensure that populations are being served and so on. So I wasn't looking for a group of people to come together and say we're going to do this, and that. I thought that this is a town council responsibility with school committee, because we have the resources, we have the kids, to say, let's put something together, let's take a look at the thing, take stock of what we have, identify our strengths, identify our weaknesses, and then develop a program around that. And then you can bring all the service providers in and then decide in your budget deliberations, what do we have? So you have lots of facilities here. I don't know what you do in the summertime yet, and how many other programs you provide. I know we do quite a bit, and I'm going to review all of that, and so on, so that we have the buildings or the communities, they should be open all year round, and the facility should be provided for it. So I haven't had time to look at that yet, but this group can be formed and it already is. They have a date for a preliminary meeting. I think what I'll do is I'll write all this up and submit it to the chair of the Education and Welfare Committee on the town side and say, here's what I was thinking. I hadn't done that. I just threw that out as an idea initially when I first came to be introduced to the town council. And I think that as representatives of more than just the school-age kids, they represent everybody here and so on. So let's see what we can do together to provide the services. And I can guarantee you there'll be 1 or 2 groups that have 4 or 5 organizations providing services for them, and then half a dozen kids over there that are getting very little. because people just make their own decisions and so on. And then you'll see participation rates, a few kids participating in lots of things, and then other kids aren't participating in hardly anything. So that'll be where we can help as a school, to identify that. So putting that together and bringing the stakeholders together to sit around and have a planning meeting is what I was proposing. I think that was substantially different than what people thought I had said. So I had some time to think about this. So any questions, any thoughts on that? All right, and I wanted to talk a little bit about ruffling feathers. Okay, I don't really mean that, but I've been here now since the beginning of January. I spent a lot of time listening to people, looking and talking to the various teachers, administrators, parents, groups. I listened to the school committee, all of your input and so on, and observed. And last week during the break, administrators, we met and we discussed the concerns and issues that we had and said, now it's time to act. And so we're now putting into place actions that are going to create a more efficient operation, utilizing staff members more effectively. And then the other goal was to create more equity across the school system. We have some people that are working extremely hard and others that need to be working a little harder. And so we identified that. The first area that we're looking at is the high school. Obviously, we've all had great concerns about the organization, the behaviors, what's been happening in the schools, and so on. And I'm a firm believer in what W. Edwards Deming, who's well-known expert on organizational science, wasn't well recognized here in the United States and went to Japan. And his Deming Prize is the highest honor you can gain in Japan, and now we've recognized him late. And he says a lot of things, but the most important thing that I got from my readings and looking at different aspects of organizational theory and science was that he said something that resonated with me, that too often we blame people when it's really the organizational structure at fault. And what I've seen in this school system, as in many other schools, lots of good people working really, really hard, but with very little direction. And subsequently, they're working hard, they're doing stuff, and then when you look at what the final outcome is, it's not what you want it to be. So, the phase one is we've met with administration, the teachers, and secretaries at the high school. And when I walk into that building, I see etched in stone, middle school, etched in stone, high school. So I think that there are a lot of thought and good planning went into developing that. And yet we have all the kids coming in through one door. We have secretarial staff and so on one side, and nobody on the other side. And if you look at school or anything from a customer orientation, if I'm a parent coming in, I want to go to the right place and be able to meet the secretary or make a phone call, get a response, and have that. So what we're doing, and Mr. Leach is working with his staff, is to inform students and parents and so on, is that come Monday, my expectation is that middle school students will walk in through the middle school side. There will be a secretary there who was formerly there. Donna Power will be on that side. I hate to use names, but I need to figure out who people are. And the assistant principal, Jill Carroll, will be down in that office. So when you walk in, there'll be someone there in the middle school. Plus, we brought the bilingual social worker down to that office, so there'll be someone that can translate. On the high school office, will stay pretty much the same because you have bilingual people over there, principal's office is there, so you have that. When you walk in now, you know, middle school, if you're 6 through 8, there'll be people immediately responsive to your concerns. And that's what it should have been done from day one. Okay, as I said, it says middle school etched in stone. It wasn't put up by crayon. And then we're looking at other needs in that school, and the state is requiring a great deal of data. Not only what you saw tonight, that's on top of everything else that they've requested. And the data is important, and we need to have the data so we can inform classroom teachers to use that data to better educate kids. My goal, and I spoke with the staff members this afternoon, was that I want everyone at Brockton, Southbridge, middle, senior high school, all the staff members to be data literate before the year is out. That's the goal. And so in order to do that, we had to release and relieve some staff members from all the stuff we've been piling on them. So we're going to have 2 people there with 0.5 release of time to be working with data, one in the middle school and one in the high school. And that entailed us to do a whole series of changes to accomplish all of that. And so what we have in phase 1 is that tomorrow morning, Colleen will be meeting with the entire staff at the high school at 7:20 with Amy and going over some of the adjustments we're making in special ed so we can ensure that class sizes, staffing is appropriate to the needs of the student. We have the people that are specialized in that can do that now. And we're looking at the structure of the classes. We have 1 or 2 classes that we were concerned about where we had age spans were too broad and the kinds of issues the students had were mixed. So we want to be able to do that. So that's going to happen tomorrow morning, and she's going to be meeting with them and making the necessary changes of moving folks, moving students. And then our next step is to create a administrative structure that will support the special ed. You saw all of those requirements for evaluation. We have no one there that has administrative certification in special education that can evaluate those teachers. And we have the largest number of special ed teachers there, so that's what we're going to be working on next. So that'll entail some changes. And this, of course, has ruffled feathers. And I always quote Niccolo Machiavelli. I rarely use his name, but he always said the most dangerous thing a man can embark upon is to change the order of things. Because now you're taking people out of their comfort zones. And people gravitate to what they like to do, not what is necessary for kids' learning. So that's one of the things we're also working on. But there'll be substantial changes in the special ed. I don't want to talk about them tonight, but this is phase 1. And then during the next month or 2, I will present to the school committee administrative structure for next year. We can have the conversation in draft form, but I need to talk with the people first. The data coaches, they came up with a clever name for themselves. They call it themselves data intervention teachers, coaches actually. So I said, change your name. And the issue with the union was also job descriptions and so on. I said, I'm not interested in creating job descriptions. I'll let those folks develop their needs, what they do and so on, then we'll tweak it and put it into a template form so there's a consistency in the position descriptions like that. And so through, like I said, 7 weeks, I had to, and time for action now. So last week it enabled us to have time we could sit and meet without interruptions, go through all of this. If you walk into my office, you see that whole whiteboard smeared with all kinds of names and arrows going in different ways and things that are particular nature. But I will have a better chart that's more accurate. I put together some color-coded charts that Amy had done for me, and because she knows the rooms and so on. And then you will know when you take this out, when you go to the high school, middle school office, who's in there, and so on. It's important for you to know when parents call you. I think that's something that, that when parents says, and so that way you can direct them to the right person, because I prefer the parent doing that, or direct them to my office. And that's our second problem, is just trying to get the telephone system organized. That's been a very difficult a long-term issue with all of that, because it really bothers me that there is no receptionist that are in the central office. There's somebody there that's not available to take a message from a parent and then pass it on to the appropriate party, and then we can respond. Right now, they're getting busy or they're getting that, so that, and I've had numerous conversations with Valley Communication, and my primary phone person, Mr. Nathan. So we got him working on all of that. So that's phase one. The other issue that's been brought to my attention and I had to act on was the elementary school with the coaches. So the principals have worked out an equitable arrangement for the rest of this year. It's very difficult to upheave third grade and fourth grade classes. So that's going to stay constant, but we're making time allotments and allocations for the West Street School to have time to be able to develop the data. Charlton School does a very good job of that, but they've had a little more staff at that. So we're moving in that direction. So that's what I wanted to just bring to your attention this evening, and then this will be an ongoing works in progress, where as we go through the process. So with the staff that we have, with the constraints of the budget that we have, how do we redirect existing, this isn't costing any more money, by the way. I'm just shuffling people, shuffling positions and stuff like that. No additional dollars. It's just changes and redirection of resources. And come April, May, when we look at next year's organization, then you'll be able to see what I hope is a coherent, logical structure with accountability built in. That's the goal. The problem is going to be, I can create beautiful charts, not a problem. It's finding the right people to fit that. That's going to be the challenge. And the only way we can accomplish that is by showing the state that we are moving and our accelerated improvement plan is meeting its timelines. That's why we have to make sure the data is there, and then ensuring the surrounding community that Southbridge Public Schools are working toward getting out of level 4 standing and developing an infrastructure that can continue improving and continue to be an exemplary school district, not one that people look at and so on. So I know we have the school committee members all behind us now. We're working as a team, and that's critical. And I think that the response I've been getting from the community, even when I go out for lunch today, I had a wonderful retired teacher come over, pat me in the head like I was a little boy, which I loved. Which I loved, by the way. She just said that, she watches on television. I was going to say, you don't have much of a life, but that's okay. But she was great. It felt good. Felt good. And I think that we've turned the corner. Now we got to keep moving. We can't fall back. We can't do that. So on Monday, and I think that the issue of teacher morale will also be addressed by some of this, because now they're getting the support. We put the people in the right place. The middle school assistant principal there, the high school assistant principal back where it is, the third principal on the second floor, with the psychologist SOAR program all right there. We got the ISS people, and that person will also be available in the morning to sign on all the tardies. And so people have distinct responsibilities and duties. That's what I was trying to get at, and so on. So I felt pretty good about this. I expected more of pushback, but for the secretaries were the greatest yesterday when the high school said, "We should have been doing this all along," was their quote. It wasn't, this isn't rocket science. It's just identifying and just doing it. So now we're in the process of doing. The studying phase is getting back. So I feel good about that. And now we move on to budgets.
All right.
Questions? I'm sorry.
Any questions? All righty, moving on. Agenda item number 11, report of the Director of Finance and Operations. Mr. Wiggin?
No formal report tonight, but I will say to the committee, because we've talked about at the last meeting, special ed transportation. Late this afternoon, I believe we've identified 2 vans. We're going to take a look at them this week If they check out, we are going to make a move to purchase them as quickly as possible. And that will have an impact on both this year's budget and next year's budget in a positive fashion.
Thank you. Moving on, school committee actions. Vote to approve the Cape Cod overnight field trip. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Domingo, second by Mrs. McLaughlin. Is there any discussion? Dr. O'Leary?
Just to reiterate, through you, Lauren, they're all set, like you said. I don't know these little semantics about changing this and changing that. That's not very difficult.
No, those sheets are something internally we have to work
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should just,
I
we
think-
should just approve this, or put it pending approval of the building principal.
I think we need, no, I only spoke, I had dinner with the building principal, okay?
We're all
so-
set. We're just.
We're all set.
next
I
time.
had dinner with the building principal and the athletic
Yes,
director.
yeah, sorry.
And that's why I said I knew all the game, who they're playing and everything else. And this is something they've done before. I agree with, we need to review the plan. I mean, not the plan, the,
Policy.
not the policy, the sheet.
The forms.
Yeah, the
All the
forms.
forms.
The form. I knew there was a word.
They're not intentional.
Couldn't think of
absolutely
a
not.
complicated word, F-O-R-M.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Max?
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Principe?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes.
Dr. D'Amico?
Yes.
6 yes?
Motion passes. Vote to approve the educator evaluation tool for the 2012-2013 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A motion by Mrs. Principe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. McLaughlin. Any discussion? Mrs. Donovan?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe if seeing Ms. Allen's still here, I'm not sure. Are we looking at this evaluation too specifically through June 30th of this school year, or are we going to extend it into June of 14?
No, June 30th of this school year.
Just this school year.
It has a sunset clause, that's one of the things that the union was able to, so on, so and then we will review this and then tweak it and make it hopefully better and acceptable to both sides and so on, and then sign on, okay? But we're
Okay.
required to have this done by the state, that was the thing.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll have roll call.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Principe?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes,
Dr. D'Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
6 yes.
thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to the next agenda, which is unfinished business. We have a second reading of the school meal charge policy file EFD. Mrs. Principe?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of this policy tonight.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Principe to waive, seconded by Dr. Domingo. Any discussion on the waiving? Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yeah, just for the public's knowledge, we did kind of create a bulletin board up at the central office that has policies that are currently undergoing revision or are in committee, policies that have been referred to the school committee, just for the public's benefit. If anybody wants to go and read what we're currently working on or what's currently under consideration, it is posted
Thank you.
in the hallway, in the main hallway. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call on that, Max?
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Principe?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes,
Dr. D'Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
6 yes.
thank you. Next, for new business, we have several items here. Our first is the next regular school committee meeting will be held on March 12th, 2013 in the council chambers. A meeting for the Education and Human Service Subcommittee to discuss a community task force will be held on March 5th, 2013 in the George Parent Community Room located at the Town Hall. If we're ready to meet discussing the task force, we will. If we're trying to collect names of anyone interested, you can reach Katie Juress or email her if you know of anyone or any from Aspera, any groups that want to be interested in that. And then they're also going to be discussing at that meeting unemployment. I know some of us had some issues with the unemployment costs and how it works and all that, so that will also be done at that meeting at EHS. So everyone is welcome to come. Next, we have the first reading of the Transportation to and from School Policy, File EEAA. Mrs. Principe, did you want to talk about that beforehand, or?
Yes, and I want to talk a little bit about why we have 3 readings, and obviously, when it came to the field trips and overnight transportation, there was an issue with our forms actually matching up with our current policy and the ones we're changing, and that's why we have the 3 readings. So it's for school committee members, not only school committee members, to read through these, within that time period of the 3 readings, and come up with other suggestions or things that they'd like to see tweaked. But it's also for the public, too, to become involved if there's something they'd like to see in the policies, and then it'll be discussed in subcommittee. The transportation to and from school used to be called walkers and riders. So we just changed that, just the title a little. And because of the reconfiguration this year of the elementary schools, we had to change now. It used to be K1 would be bused to the school that they attend. So it's just the kindergarten pupils. And we changed the grade 1 through 5 pupils will be bused if they reside more than 1 mile from school, or if the daycare provider. The rest actually stayed the same on that. And that's it for that one.
Thank you. Do we want to go through all the new readings, and do you want to waive them all at once, or do you want to go individually? How would you?
I
All at
would waive
once?
them all at once.
Okay, so the next
That would be
reading-
C, D, and E.
All right, yep. D is the first reading of the field trips, overnight travel, and international travel policy file, JJH.
And I think we'll be going over that again to match it up with, tomorrow morning, actually. Mrs. McLaughlin had done a great job taking our policies. We had 2, actually, one about field trips and one about student travel, and they were both in different sections of the manual, and we're merging them to be one policy that will also include international travel. And it just seems it's been confusing for teachers, for administrators, and even for school committee. The policies weren't exactly that clear, so that's what we're working on. And now we need to align the forms, because tonight when we got the forms, along with Mrs. McLaughlin, I was looking at them and saying, oh boy, we've got some work to do. So we'll be looking at that again tomorrow. And along with that goes the regulations. So maybe we'll actually have exhibits to put in with the policies also. That would be wonderful.
All right, and E is the first reading of the student travel regulations policy file, JJHR, which goes along with what Mrs. Principe just said.
Correct.
All right, so if we have a motion to waive these first 3 readings of all these 3 policies, that would be wonderful. Motion to waive from Dr. D'Amico. Do we have a second from Mrs. Principe? Is there any other discussion on the waiving?
Not so much on the waiving, but I would just remind the committee, because I won't be here, on EEAA, when you vote to approve that, you want to approve that for July 1.
July 1.
Correct.
Okay.
Effective date.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call on that?
Mrs. Principe?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes.
Dr. D'Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
6 yes.
Thank you. And the last thing that I have for new business is, this is Mr. Wiggins' last week with us, so I want to thank him for all his work that he's done with us, and wish him well in his future endeavors. And Mr. Wiggins?
Thank you. And I didn't actually plan to say this, but I have to say, with all due respect to Superintendent Buzz, I waited 19 months in this district to hear some of what was said a few minutes ago. And so it was really refreshing to hear. So I commend the committee on its decision to keep him, as long as you can keep him. But I asked the chair for just a few minutes to thank the committee for the opportunity to serve you and the children of this district for the last 19 months. I wanted to extend my thanks to the administrators I've worked with, save one. And I think everybody will understand that comment. And the staff, I think we've got an exceptional staff here that work very, very hard. And again, for the kids. And I think it is all about the kids for them. But I also, as I have that opportunity here on TV, I have to say that more so than any other community. I've been in other communities where I've been on TV and people will come up after a meeting and they'll speak to me, and sometimes it's nice and sometimes it's not so nice. But actually, I always get very pleasant comments and very supportive comments from the people here at Southbridge, and they've always been very kind and generous to me. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to move here, frankly. So I will be sad to leave the district as an employee, but again, we will continue here as a resident. So hopefully we will find other things to do to be supportive of the community and of course, of the children. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with any new business?
Two quick things. Just a reminder to everybody that at the Southbridge Middle High School tomorrow night, there is a murder mystery. It's based on an Agatha Christie story, and it's, I believe the tickets for the dinner it's too late to get those, but just if somebody wanted to see the show and walk in, it will be at 7 o'clock at Southbridge Middle High School, and it's $6 for the show. So public is welcome to come and see the play in a beautiful facility. And the other thing, Madam Chair, I was just curious about is I had noticed in going through some old paperwork that at some point in time, we're supposed to, or I don't know if it's actually your responsibility or the school committees to review executive session minutes to see what can be released, if anything can be released. I'm not sure that we've done that in the term that I've been here, and I just wanted to throw that out there. That's something we probably should look into.
We actually are working on that.
Great.
With the lawyers to make sure the ones that we can, because a lot of our sessions
Yeah.
still can't be released.
Sure.
So we are working on that. So that will be coming up short in the
Thank you very
future.
much.
Even the last executive session meeting.
Anyone else?
Says that we weren't going to come. Basically,
All right, we'll move on to the next agenda, which is executive session. We're going to vote to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for union and non-union personnel or litigation to the extent that an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the governmental body pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Part 3, and to comply with the provisions of general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Part B. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, and a second. Motion by Mrs. Principe, second by Dr. Domingo. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Woodrow?
Yes?
Dr. Domingo?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Principe?
Yes.
6 yes.
Thank you, and we will return for adjournment only. All right. Quickly.
Yeah, we're going to have a short meeting, right? Brief, right?
You did make a mess.